got me down again. Hold up. You got me down again.
So, anyways, Andy, so tell us a little bit about your experience here so
Gotta
far.
speak up a little bit. We got this little mic.
Yeah.
Sure. What do you want to know?
Just as far as what you've seen here, what you would like to start seeing here, what are some of the things that have been good experiences so far, and what are some, and then next I'm going to ask, what are some things you do want to see popping up around here?
Yeah. Well, so it was a really rocky start. It was, it was the looting the first couple nights. No one expected this, and it just kind of happened. And so, there's no leadership, there's no plan. It's just kind of people are still feeling out what it is, and it's still pretty early stage.
Do we actually? I just thought of something. Do we know who had the first brainchild of this even happening? Does anyone know?
No one really expected the police to abandon the precinct. What it
Okay.
was up until that point was, it was just a block in every direction of the precinct and people screaming at them. And just forming walls. They had the National Guard out there, but then they just up it. So that was it. That was all anyone was planning on.
Yeah.
Like, we're just going to keep here yelling at these people, putting pressure.
Yeah.
And then they just left.
Okay.
And so that was the point. It's like, well, now what do we do? And people were, I think Zuccotti Park is still in people's minds. Some people were like, yeah, let's move in and see what happens. And so I think the city kind of did the math and said, well, they're not torching the precinct. They're not looting downtown.
Yeah.
This is a pretty chill holding pattern for everyone. And so I think that's kind of where we are. And that's, again, like, everyone's trying to spin a narrative like this is a planned operation by Antifa and George Soros, but it's not like that. It's really just a bunch of Seattleites were angry. A bunch of people in a bunch of cities were angry, and people don't yet know what to do with that anger.
Yeah.
And so here we are.
Yeah.
But that's really all that's happened so far. It's not planned, and that's the thing that everyone has to kind of get their head around, because we like to think that there's adults who are structuring all this stuff, but that's not the way.
No, it turns
history
out
happens.
adults aren't very good at planning. When you're a kid, you think adults have it all together. It turns out we don't. It's weird.
So what are your thoughts, Nate, so far?
Let
me rephrase. Is it different than what you thought it was?
Totally different. A lot more hippies than I was expecting. It looks like the hippies have really been latching on to this, which is cool and everything. But now my next question would be, what do you want to see if you were the quote unquote leader? Even though part of the reason is that there is no leader, I get that. But let's say everyone came to you and asked you, "Hey, Andy, what direction should we go now? What should we do with this land that you guys have kind of acquired?"
Common dude.
Yeah.
I actually am Spartacus.
Okay.
Well, we're standing right here. I think it's worth panning this, and this is what real estate development looks like in Capitol Hill. It is these 7-story brutalist concrete steel structures that cost about $200,000 a unit at a minimum small apartment, up to $500,000 to build. Makes absolutely no sense. It does not cost $500,000 to build a wooden box. But that's the reality of real estate in this city. And so what I'd like to see happen, and what I think is an interesting moment here, is showing people you can actually have a community that's safe, that's hygienic, that's respectful, that doesn't involve buying an $800,000 wooden box. I'd love to see people actually spending some time here and putting up, see a lot of tarps going up. I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see people have a space in the city where you can just exist without being wealthy. And I think that's a thing that people have been feeling is absent.
Okay, so would you want? We were talking a little bit about it, just walking through, kind of the tent zone, I would call it.
The residential district.
Sure, the residential district, commercial district is down the hill.
It's a bedroom community.
Yeah. So, anyways, if you would want to see some more permanent structures going up, like cabins and stuff like that, what would you like to see in that?
I'd love to see that. And it doesn't even need to be permanent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the middle of summer right now. You put up some 4x4s, string a tarp with some light steel cable, just block off a few thousand square. The only thing you have to worry about is the rain.
Yeah.
It's so nice to sleep out here that as long as you have the rain off of you, it doesn't need to be much more than that. And you can't think too permanent right now because no one knows what the cops are going to do.
Yeah.
They could come straight through here Zuccotti Park style and just clear the whole thing.
Yeah.
They do this to homeless encampments all over Seattle. It's like playing whack-a-mole. So I think people are very much feeling that like this could all go away tomorrow. We just, some midnight rave. We just don't know.
Yeah.
But for the time being, the city seems to kind of feel like this is a good, calm moment, and let's keep it this way. And I think the cooler heads in the movement are kind of feeling the same way.
Well, I mean, obviously, I would think that you wouldn't want anyone to actually, or the cops to come through and clear this all out.
No, absolutely not.
Wouldn't you think that permanent buildings would kind of restrict them from doing that, or make it at least a whole heck of a lot harder?
It's a double-edged sword. I think that would be the thing that really spooks the city.
Yeah.
Because this entire economy is predicated on this is what powers the economy. Buildings are 50% of humanity's assets.
Yeah.
If you can show people, look, it doesn't cost $500,000 to build a box that keeps you warm and dry. If you can do that for $5,000, that is a shiv in the kind of side of the economy.
Okay.
And so I think that would really genuinely alarm them. Whereas, the tents don't threaten anything because everyone knows they're going away.
We were just having another little conversation here. He wants to see this less about BLM, and recently its name changed from Chaz to Chop, trying to refocus things in on the Black Lives Matter movement rather than anything else, because a lot of people have kind of been adding some other meanings to this out here. And Andy also, he wants more of those meanings to be out here.
So do you want to kind of reinterpret what he just said?
Well, it's that, not to take away from anything BLM's doing, their thing is totally legitimate. I'm totally with them. But that's not the only thing going on in our society, and that's kind of the key, is how do we balance all these different, you've got anarchists here, you've got communists here, you've got BLM people here, you got all kinds of people who have their primary lens that they look at this thing through, and the thing that I kind of think needs to be impressed is the mega lens that affects all the others is who has all the money. That's the thing that kind of affects everyone. And I think a lot of the things that people kind of interpret as being a symptom of some form of bigotry, really it's only bigotry toward the people without money. The people with tons of money tend to be immune from those sorts of things, and that has to be kind of brought up in the context of everything else that's going on. So it's important to kind of remember that each of these individual grievances and focuses are important, but they are part of a larger whole, is how I would put it.
Cool. So, I think probably the first time you guys are going to see me on camera, but I've been doing filming all day. I've known Andy for a long time, Andy and I disagree on a lot. We agree on some things. But regardless of that, I'd like to think one of the reasons we get along is because we both tend to have open minds and we're willing to take all the things that we believe to bad against each other.
Yeah.
Which has resulted in me on a few things, maybe not everything, changing my mind. And at least I know that you said that you've seen things from a different perspective since meeting me.
Oh, absolutely.
So that was kind of the intent today, was to come up here and get a first-hand account of what's going on, because you see all this, like, no better word for it, really, propaganda online about what things are. We're close enough to Seattle to where I figured it was at least worth taking a look myself, partly because I'm an anarcho-capitalist, but anarchy in a stateless society is something I've long advocated for. So this is moving in that direction. Whether or not I agree with that, I'll get into a little bit later, but this is at least moving in that direction. And ultimately, I've had no problem with it as long as everyone's peaceful, which I've seen nothing but people being peaceful and working together as a community. And I didn't really see anything much to really gripe about the whole day being here.
Well, I mean, the warlord took my watch at the checkpoint, but aside from...
You had to pay your entry fee?
It's so chill. I mean, it just feels like a block party. I had a friend on the other day came down there with her kid and called it Woke Paradiso, which is about kind of what you're feeling. It's a lot of people just sitting out.
And I don't agree with it necessarily, but one that I couldn't help but laugh at, I saw something called Soymalia.
That was good.
Yeah,
Wokeadishu.
Yeah. But I mean, it was just a bunch of people feeling like they're coming together to make the world better, and it's hard for me to have a problem with that.
It's something different.
Yeah.
I think, we all have our different perspectives on what's wrong with society, and there's a lot of different opinions and a lot of different ideologies, but there's enough people that are not happy with the default reality that they're coming out of the streets. And right or wrong, that's the thing that's happening. And I think there's something to be said for being optimistic and being willing to kind of just create space for people to try anything new.
Yeah.
Whether it's painting on walls, whether it's having conversations.
Well, and that anything that sparks the conversation is kind of where I've always, like, we need to be having. I'll wholeheartedly admit there is a lot wrong, and we need some monumental change in our society. And anything that starts that conversation, I'm all for. I don't want to see it cross the line, but that's inevitably going to happen with any kind of movement. There's going to be those looking to push it to that area, which we didn't see any of today. So I'm not saying it hasn't happened down here. I don't know what the night brings, but from our experience and being down here and from your experience, I've just seen everyone being peaceful.
It's mellowed out a great deal, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely. So thank you, Andy. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Heck yes. It looks delicious.
Here's the food of the Free Capitol Hill, of Chop.
What'd you get, Andy?
Vegan burrito, it's great.
Heck yeah. It looks good.
Yeah, I could do decent food.
Heck yes.
See, communism does work.
And all of this is being backed with the funding of capitalism. You don't have to leave that in.